from WBBZ-TV Sports. It's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to Central Lanes in Salamanca. It's Beat the Champ's third week of our stay down here just along Route 219 with Janelle and Sue Novoitsky. My name is Paul Peck. Well, what we've seen through the first 2 weeks, it has gotten us to a place that is not a surprise. Chuck Jagodzinski advancing after 2 wins in a row heading into week 3.
Well, it's true that he's probably the most experienced bowler that had been in our field. And it was a question whether the Salamanca bowlers could rise above that, but what a great show that he put on for us. But he's challenging some people today that are very similar to him.
Yeah, matter of fact, it'll start off with one of maybe the more anticipated matches we've had on Beat the Champ in a long time. Chuck Jagodzinski, our most successful, versus Rob Piccoli, who has been on this show now for the 8th time in the last 9 months. And then after that, we get Mike Kemp, another really successful bowler, and then a Salamanca guy in Billy Owens.
Right, we see some serious hot streaks, but 8 out of 9 months that he's been on this show, that's a long hot streak. And he plays the lanes very much like they need to be played. Very down and in, got that ball speed, and same thing with Kemp. So they're going to be tough on Chuck.
Yeah, and it was a 4-pin difference that kept Rob Piccoli from being on this show 9 months in a row. Oh. Chuck Jagodzinski moves quick and knocks all those pins down. You're going to have your work cut out for you.
I definitely am with all of these guys. I mean, they're so talented, but it's all going to be about who's going to, overcome these lane conditions today for sure.
All right, so it's going to be a fun week 3 here in Salamanca, and we get it started with a match that should be outstanding. It's Chuck and Rob, so let's get rolling. Well, if you are a diehard Beat the Champ fan, when you hear me say Chuck versus Rob, you know exactly what I'm talking about and why you should be excited about it. And if you're not, it's okay. It's Rob Piccoli and Chuck Jagodzinski, and I'll give you the numbers in a moment to tell you why this is such a significant match between two very, very good bowlers.
I have to say that these are 2 of the strongest bowlers. They're very hot right now in Western New York, and I expect to see a great match out of them.
Yeah, and again, this is the 35th appearance on our show by Chuck Jagodzinski. It's the 21st appearance on our show by Rob Piccoli. As you heard me already mention, he's made the show 8 times in the last 9 months. This is number 1 and number 3 in most appearances on the show in our 5 years of existence. And again, these are 2 guys who might arguably be 2 of the best bowlers, or at least guys bowling the best right now in Western New York.
Right, and a very uncharacteristic shot out of Rob on that first one. He pulled it to the left and it went high, went Brooklyn, and he managed to carry it, but that's not how he's going to beat Chuck today.
It's not why they call him Rocket Rob for shots like that, but sometimes that maybe a little more finesse is what he might need, so.
Oh, we've seen this leave a lot.
He'll have to play for that 7-pin spare, will the 35-year-old from Kenmore, New York, Rocket Rob Piccoli. Don't forget, all the updates on everything you need to know about the show is on our Facebook page at Beat the Champ. Upcoming schedules, qualifying, future events, highlights, all there for you.
Good spare.
So Chuck Jagodzinski now has won 2 in a row here after winning the last 2 last week here in Salamanca. He's up to 39 wins here on Beat the Champ. And those 39 wins are 3 more than the next closest competitor, which is Mike Zarcone. And then you go down to Jeremy Zimmerman's 22, Pat Brick's 17, and then you get to Rob's 16. So we've got 2 top 5 guys here. And if nothing else, what those numbers tell you is how dominant both Chuck and Mike have been, that there's such a big gap between guys like that.
Right, and you got to consider the fact that we change bowling centers every single month. So they're not just going to a bowling center and posting great scores. They literally do this month to month, traveling, different spots, different lane conditions. Really good.
And that's why the achievement that we've talked about with Rob, it may be more amazing than the statistics and all the other stuff I threw at you. 8 times in the last 9 months he's been on our show in not quite 8 different bowling centers, but I think 7 different bowling centers. And the only one he missed by 4 pins.
Right.
So that is an incredible ability to adapt his game to the conditions, to the centers, to wood, to synthetic, to the competition. I mean, you know, as great as Chuck and Mike Zarcone have been, they're not here every month. Because it's hard. It's hard to be here every month.
That's right, and we've encountered some sports shots too. Rapids put out 2 different sports shots back to back, and it still doesn't stop the cream from rising to the top.
Right. So we saw Rob Piccoli last month at Grand Island. That was a brief appearance for him, which is unusual. So if you add the numbers up here, just to continue to throw more at you to show you how significant this match is, these 2 guys have combined to be on the show 56 times.
Wow.
With 55 wins.
Surprisingly enough, well, keeping in mind that the only practice these guys get is on a pair that has not been bowled on quite as much as this pair has been on. So Chuck kind of knew what he was getting into, where Rob on the practice pair didn't see this much dry, but Rob's having a tough time, the ball not biting on him early, and he's still trying to conquer that, and Chuck's got the first 3 and is running away.
Yep.
So,
you know, and Chuck has won 2 in a row. In those 2, average 241.
right.
And that would be 4 frames and 4 strikes for the 52-year-old from Lancaster, Chuck Jagodzinski. That was pretty close to a perfect shot, wasn't it?
It was, yep, from start to finish.
You know, and I think one of the things we noted on our show last week is he's really locked in. And Chuck's a guy that when he's locked in, and mostly he's locked in because he's bowling well. Sometimes when he's not bowling well, he gets distracted and aggravated and mad at me, you, everybody else.
Lucky we don't have to drive home with them. Ooh.
That was a little closer than he might like to have had it.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
I don't recall the last time, I don't know if these guys have ever squared off against each other on our show.
No.
Okay, see, I knew Chuck would know, and he says, yes, they faced each other at Grand Island before. Chuck probably knew what the score was and probably knew what he had for breakfast that day. Boy, that looked, but the neat thing about the angle that we show you is you can see that ball tracking right where it needs to track into that pocket, and that was just a kind of a unlucky break.
Well, the awesome thing about, I can almost see it perfectly because I'm directly behind him on that shot right there, but he has a little trick that he does at the bottom that creates a little bit of a rotation through the front that doesn't pick up. So he's able to skid through the front of the lane and not have it bite up on him early, which is the problem the other bowlers are having. It's starting to hook early in the front of the lane, and he just has a little trick that sprays right through the front of the lane.
Yep, there's such an incredible consistency to Chuck's motion and the way he throws the ball that it never wavers much off of that exact spot between the 1 and the 3 pins, which is where he wants it to be, which is why he's so good.
Right, and truthfully, the only thing that's going to hurt Chuck is a whole lot of oil in the front of the lane, like across the whole lane, and then you can just compensate that with bowling balls. So, you know, he's got a pretty solid game.
And that one looked pretty good as well for Rob, but
he's throwing it so hard that the ball's not picking up.
Right.
So
it's kind of blowing pins all over the place.
You need the rotation to help spin these pins around, and his ball is still going so hard when it hits the pins.
Spare for Rob in the 7th frame. 14 career 300s, 3 career 800s. 801, 802, 803 are the 3 career 100s for Rob. Can't wait to see him bowl in 804. That would appear to be the next one. for him. He is one of the busiest bowlers in Western New York. At the moment, he tells us he's only bowling 4 days a week, but I'd be shocked if those other 3 days he isn't in a bowling center somewhere. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays is when Rob is in leagues around Western New York.
And he's working full time. That's a lot. That's a love for something.
8th frame strike.
This could be a record match in time because these guys are both so fast.
Well, we figured out that our last match last week, normally our matches are somewhere around 15 minutes each. That last match between Chuck and Jim McGarrah was 11 minutes.
Wow.
In length, yeah.
Wow.
And that's partly because if you haven't already noticed, Chuck, there is no wasted time with Chuck Jagodzinski. The only if the bowling returns were twice as fast and literally shot those things out from a cannon, he'd be happier. Yeah, I don't think there's anybody in Western New York that bowls as quickly as Chuck does.
I know. I've never. I mean, and it doesn't seem to affect his pace. Like,
I think we've seen when he has to wait, it does affect him.
Right. Probably more so throws him off. Right.
All right, so we're heading down to the stretch here. 9th frame for Rob.
Well, he's down quite a bit. He's down 40 pins, but Chuck didn't strike, which is going to give Rob the opportunity to post a couple strikes up here. The best Rob can do is 227, which would force Chuck to have to spare in the 10th frame, but he needs all of them.
Yeah, and the ring 10s are plaguing both guys, and that's not what Rob wanted. He needed those 4 strikes, didn't he?
He needed all of them just to force Chuck to mark. So now this is pretty much a done deal now.
So again, the brilliance of Chuck Jagodzinski will be the story of this match between these two incredibly talented bowlers. Rob has not bowled poorly, but not as many strikes as maybe we're used to seeing from him, and probably as many as he probably knew he needed. That's because Chuck's got 6 of them already in his match. So
it helps to get out of the gate with a 4-bagger, and
oh yeah. Starting with a 4-bagger, right? There's a good strike in the 10th for Rob, but as Sue said, it's not going to quite be enough here. So Chuck Jagodzinski is going to continue his winning streak. It'll be 3 wins in a row for Chuck, with a chance maybe to close out the week here and advance to Fredonia if he does that. But there's 2 guys that are standing in his way. Mike Kemp and Billy Owens. They are the next 2 bowlers up. So we know we're going to get Jagodzinski and Mike Kemp, and that's going to be coming your way after we check in with Rob Piccoli. It was a fun match. It was a great match. It's going to be a little bummer for Rob that he didn't win it, but Chuck Jagodzinski is locked in right now. We'll have that conversation and get you ready for match number 2 when Sue and I return to Salamanca. Chuck Jagodzinski's 241 average comes down a little bit as he rolls a 237 to knock off Rob Piccoli. You know Chuck pretty well. You bowled against him a lot. Do you get the sense that he's going to be a handful here moving forward?
Yeah. Pretty much you got to start fast with him and kind of keep pace, and hopefully whoever comes out on top.
Right. You know, Rob, we talked a little bit about this incredible streak that you've been on of being on the show, and certainly expect to see you in Fredonia next week. What's been the key to being consistently able to qualify to be on the show, which is really hard to do under a lot of different circumstances?
It is very tough. I mean, every house has its little quirks, and I took a program with the Bowl U at Brad Angelo's and learned a lot with ball motion and lane transition, and it's just like playoff hockey, and in the roll-offs, and it's like a different mode, and just enjoy it.
Yeah,
so.
Playoff hockey. We don't really know what that is around here, but most hockey fans do understand that.
Yeah, us Flyer fans really understand.
Oh, I see. There we go. I teed you up for that one.
You
didn't
did.
I?
That was a good setup, Paul.
There you go. Make him feel a little better,
Rob,
Paul.
thanks. I appreciate you coming down every time we've had a Beat the Champ, whether it's in Bradford or here. You've been here, and we thank you for supporting us.
It's a lot of fun. Thank
you. Good luck.
All right, he's basically the fourth member of our broadcast crew because he's with us almost every month, and we expect to see him in Fredonia. Rob Piccoli, another good show. Chuck Jagodzinski rolls on. He and Mike Kemp coming up next here on Beat the Champ. It's match number 2 here of week number 3. Can Chuck Jagodzinski keep it going? Michael Kemp stands in his way, and it'll be Chuck that will start things off. 3 wins in a row for Chuck Jagodzinski, up to 40 wins here on Beat the Champ. First guy to ever get to that mark, and significant number that it is.
Well, so that was interesting. So what Chuck did is he changed to a shinier ball. And what happened is it retained too much energy and did that snappy thing off the back.
Yep.
So
and that's a very unlikely and unusual open frame in the first.
and that is technology for you. I mean, because
Too much technology a little bit, right? A little
well, he's going down a ball trying to get more skid to the front, but what it's doing is retaining too much energy and then snapping too hard in the back. So you need more of that mid lane roll where it kind of tapers out, where it doesn't retain so much energy that it snaps.
bit. Michael Kemp is one of our outstanding Beat the Champ bowlers as well. He's in his 13th appearance on the show, 9 wins versus 10 losses. We saw him last month, 1 match and a loss at Grand Island, but Kemp has been an outstanding bowler throughout the course of our 5-year run of Beat the Champ.
Yeah, it's nice to see him back. He was, we hadn't seen him for a little while, and now we've seen him
2 in a row.
2 in a row, so
Yep.
it's nice to see him back. He really is a strong bowler. Nice down and in game, but still a lot of good rotation on his ball.
35 years old from Lancaster is Michael Kemp. So he starts with a spare and moves to frame 2 on lane 7. And there's our first strike of this match, and it belongs to Michael Kemp.
Yep. I mean, the show's been in existence long enough now where he's gotten married and had a child through the course of our show.
That's an interesting way to talk about our longevity on this show. So Chuck Jagodzinski now in his 4th match has started all of them at least with 2 strikes. So that's why the open in that frame followed up by the strike is a little bit of an unusual start.
Yeah,
and that's part of the key of Jagodzinski is right off the bat ramping up that intimidation factor.
Yeah, you're right, and he keeps the other bowler, he keeps his opponent having to rush to keep up with them. He gets off to that quick start, and then they're playing catch-up all the time. This is the first time he's been behind, I think, in the match since.
Yeah, and I would have to think that, you know you're bowling against one of the best guys in Western New York, so that may set the tone a little bit even before you start. Boy, you saw Chuck put his hands to his head there. He didn't necessarily like where that one was going,
Yeah.
but he avoids a second open with a spare in the 3rd. How much has that ever come into a play in your bowling career? If you're going up against clearly someone that you know is great, does that change your mindset? Have you noticed it affects you early on, maybe? Oh, I can't screw up. I better keep it safe this one.
Now
No
that
margin for error.
it's not the best habit to have, because you should have enough confidence in your game, and being prepared gives you that confidence. But I will say that I would be always someone who was a bit intimidated by greatness, and sometimes because you're a fan and you're impressed by what they've accomplished, and you can't do that. You've got to go in there and feel like you can compete and beat them. And I would say that it's probably something that's held me back is not having that confidence against the big names.
Interesting. A lot easier to do. It's easy to say you need to do that. It's a lot easier to actually not let it sneak
Which is
into
why
your
I
head.
bowl with Liz Johnson instead of against her.
Good thing. That would be the right way to adapt to that. Understand your weaknesses, right? Very smart on your part. So 2 strikes and 2 spares, first 4 frames for Michael Kemp.
Yeah, I mean, just a funny story. We bowl nationals now. We cross with For anybody who's watched women's bowling, we Jeannie Nacarado, who used to be Jeannie Maiden, Robin Romeo, Carol Norman. These are the girls we cross against at nationals now. And the first year we came up against them, I was like, I don't want to bowl in the same pair with these girls. These girls are amazing. And I just had this feeling I didn't want to embarrass myself. And now I'm used to it. Now they're great girls, and you can actually do better because you're watching how they line up. And that's one thing about bowling against a great bowler. Always, they're gonna make the moves faster than you are. Watch what they're doing, and learn and follow them instead of being worried about how good they bowl.
All right, almost a little bit of a hiccup there for Chuck, as that was an unusual leave for him, but he's good enough to get the spare and not have it damage him.
Well, if you look up at that, you see that Chuck's still fishing around in lane 7.
Yeah. He's, as much as we talked in the last couple of matches, particularly last week, about how incredibly consistent throwing the ball to the same place all the time Chuck is, when the lanes sometimes dictate that you can't do that anymore, that's when Chuck starts to really fish around for things.
Well, the ball that he has chosen to use on that lane isn't reading it right. It's actually creating more of a problem for him. If he moves in, it's going to go light. If he goes up the boards, it's biting up too early. What he really needs to do is go back to the ball he was using before that he knows is going to get to the pocket, and just get to the pocket.
Right.
Because giving up the pocket Mike's doing well, but he hasn't run away. It's not like he has the front 5, and you don't have. Yeah. You're out of it.
3 strikes and 2 spares on the front 5 for Michael Kemp as he makes the turn to 6.
So Chuck is down 20 pins, but that's just a double or a 3-bagger, really.
Right.
Because so far, Mike has only been able to put together 1 double, even though he's hit the pocket every time.
10 career 300s, a high 849 for Michael Kemp. Bowls regularly in the Thursday Night League at Transit Lanes, where he averages over 230. That
849 is just a giant number. Think about how high that is.
And that looked a lot more like the Jagodzinski roll that we saw for most of last week's shows.
This looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
Matt, that win streak responsible for more than half of his overall wins here on the show. And that one got a little too far to the left, didn't it?
Yeah, he might have cut that one a little bit short. I was watching where his feet lined up. He's very, very deep, but he must need to get a little bit right of where he got it to. So seven's gonna be tough.
And it's going to leave an open with 1 pin in the 8th frame for Michael Kemp, and where you worry about that is the door open for Chuck Jagodzinski.
Correct.
And no one knows that better than Chuck, and no one has shown the ability to take advantage of that better than Chuck. But not that time, and he knows that too.
Well, that was a big shot for him because he could actually have gone ahead in this match by 2 pins if he would have thrown the next 3 strikes. And he's struck on this lane every time, so,
So it's a spare in the 8th for Jagodzinski,
but he's cut this to 10.
Yep, I'll say this one's coming right down to the final 2 frames. And I think,
as
Chuck's,
usual with Chuck.
Yeah, and Chuck's fishing a little bit, so he's got to find it fast, and that'll do it.
Well, it wasn't perfect, but it tripped out that 4, and he does not have to get back up on that lane again. So he's forced Mike to have to finish on that lane, which is very smart right now. You really want your opponent finishing on lane 7.
All part of the strategy that goes into who starts where. Do you want to let the other guy start so you can dictate where you want to finish? This is such a thinking person's game, bowling.
Oh, holy ring around the 10 pin.
But that's happened a lot here today, hasn't it?
Wow, that was a beauty.
That 10 pin is not being very cooperative, particularly here today.
Well, this makes it interesting now because this is even if he strikes out now, Chuck cannot shut Chuck out at this point.
Well, and what you probably don't want to do is let Chuck come toe the line there with a chance to win on you.
Well, if he strikes out right now, they could still tie.
They could still tie.
Right, but Chuck cannot be shut out.
All right, so lots of pressure on Michael right now. And will not get that first strike he needs so badly.
Yep, now Chuck gets to go up on a lane that he loves and finish this match out. So it depends what he does here.
So one more fill ball for Michael Kemp to post his final score.
Chuck's still going to have to double.
All right, still putting a lot of pressure on Chuck then. So Michael Kemp does not particularly finish as strong as he would like to and puts a 193 score on the board.
So that changes things. Because he only got 8 on his fill ball. Now the first strike.
There it is.
Okay, so now what he needs is 9 spare or another strike.
9 spare or a strike right here.
Right. If Mike would have gotten 9 or struck on his fill ball, he would have forced Chuck to have to double here. But because he didn't, now Chuck only needs 9.
All right, so there you go. Chuck Jagodzinski to win the match. And he gets 7.
Oh, hang on, I have a score wrong. That changes things. 193. It's a tie.
He gets 2 of the 3.
It's a tie.
It's a tie at 193.
It is a tie.
Wow.
It is a tie.
It's a little unexpected drama here.
It is.
You know Chuck wants to make it exciting.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Chuck does like to make things exciting for us, doesn't he? 2-frame roll off, and the first one gets Chuck a strike.
Look at Chuck striking on lane 7.
So we end the match tied at 193. 2-frame roll off, essentially 9th and 10th frames for each guy.
Correct.
So Mike will roll his 2 shots, or at least 2 shots here.
He'll
for the 9th
he'll bowl
and
his
10th.
9th and 10th for as many pins as he can get.
Another ring 10, putting a headache for everybody in this place, including Michael. All right, so the 9th frame of our tiebreaker will be a spare for Michael Kemp. And now he moves over to the 7th, and he'll bowl out here.
He'll bowl out
on the 7th frame, on 7th lane rather.
On lane 7, his 10th frame.
And this tiebreaker to determine who will advance on for our final match of the day to take on Billy Owens. Another ring 10.
Right.
Maybe Michael's going to have nightmares of ring 10s when he goes to sleep at home in Lancaster later. Does pick up the spare, so here comes the fill ball equivalent of the 10th frame here in our tiebreaker. That our match ended at 193 all.
Right.
Best of 2 frames here, basically, to determine our winner. So Michael wants as much count as he can get. And yet again, another ring around the 10. That concludes his tiebreaker.
Right, so he's got 38. So a strike here for Chuck would win it.
Chuck struck on his first tiebreaker ball, and that will give him the victory. So it took a little longer than Chuck would have liked. It gave us a little more drama which we do like. And it winds up another victory for Chuck Jagodzinski, his 4th in a row, and advances on to our final match of the day to take on Billy Owens. We'll talk with Michael Kemp and get you ready for that match when Sue and I return to Central Lanes in Salamanca. Well, this one goes to a tiebreaker where Chuck Jagodzinski winds up knocking off Michael Kemp. I feel like you should ask Paul Geiger if you can run down that lane and just kick that 10-pin, because that was sort of the bane of your existence, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, especially that left lane was definitely trickier than the right lane. And, you know, you figure something out and then you can't carry, so then you got to figure something else out, but there's no more time left to do that.
You're right. You know, the tiebreakers can be a little nerve-wracking. Have you? I don't know how often that's happened for you in your bowling career. How do you handle going into one of those?
Well, I've never been in something like this before, you know, tying like that. But you know, you just got to go up to it as normal and not even really think about it.
Right. All right. Well, it was certainly a fun match. Are you going to let him go wail on that 10-pin a little bit?
He can do whatever he needs to. I mean, it is frustrating. Like you said, you think you make a good shot, you make an adjustment off a shot that came high, and then the ball's just not. It's just not quite. That lane's hooking more, but it's just not finishing enough to kick that 10 out of there, and it'll drive you nuts. That's for sure. But obviously, he's been bowling long enough. He knows. I don't have to tell him. That's bowling.
Yep. All right. Well, I know how instead of letting them kick the pins, you can make them feel a little better.
I can do that.
So.
Mike, thanks for coming down. We appreciate you supporting us.
All right. Always good to have Michael Kemp on our show. I know it won't be much longer before we do again, but I know it's definitely not going to be much longer before we get another one out of Chuck Jagodzinski. Can he sweep the week? Billy Owens stands in his way. That match is next. Final match of the day here in Salamanca, and its hometown guy Billy Owens is going to be the one to try to knock off Chuck Jagodzinski and end the 4-match winning streak. Will he have some home house advantage? Not if Chuck Jagodzinski is going to keep doing that all day.
Nope, Chuck went back to that ball that he had been originally using and got away from that ball that was giving him that squirrely reaction.
Yep.
And much better, much better.
It's the Beat the Champ debut for Billy Owens, 48 years old, from right here in Salamanca, employed by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
Great shot.
Not conserving any energy with a first frame strike.
No, great shot. Normally he's back here entertaining us.
I was
He's
gonna
very
say,
funny.
He's back here running the show here at
Yeah.
Central Lanes, but now he is front and center. Yeah, we've gotten to know Billy a little bit during our stay here in Salamanca. He's a terrific guy, and they love him down here.
Look how deep he is. Wow.
Tell you what, you noticed how deep he was. I noticed how much he sort of cups the ball on his approach, you know, kind of really tucks it in.
Yeah, because you can see him on it.
Who are we to argue on either front? 2 frames and 2 strikes. So normally it's the Chuck Jagodzinski doing that to everybody else with amazing starts. And right now we've had 4 frames and 4 strikes by these 2 guys.
Right, and they play the lanes different. Billy is definitely inside of Chuck, but whatever works.
There's Janelle on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. We had to do some scrambling there to account for the playoff overtime that we had in the last match. We need like an addendum scoreboard, auxiliary scoreboard that pops down from the ceiling. So.
Well, lucky Chuck moves this fast because we had time for that.
That's right. We had
that
to slow
2-frame
Chuck
roll
down.
off.
We had to tell Chuck to wait. He doesn't like being told to wait. Billy Owens has a 220 average in a couple of nights of bowling here at Central Lanes. I don't think he liked that from the very beginning.
No, he got over the top of that. That one wasn't as clean to the fronts.
Bowls here in the league on Monday nights and Friday nights here at Salamanca's Central Lanes. And one of his partners in Friday night is a guy we saw on our show last week, and that's Billy Thompson. Spare the third frame for Billy Owens. There you see the vitals on Mr. Owens. I think that's been pretty cool. We've had about half of our bowlers here for the last 3 weeks have been Salamanca guys, and that's what's great. We love giving those guys the attention that they deserve, along with great bowling down in this neck of the woods. And we're on this run here of Salamanca and Fredonia, Jamestown. We've been to Bradford, so we get down this neck of the woods a lot.
I just thought of the fact that we haven't talked to Paul at all today, our proprietor here. With Chuck bowling, it's been going so quickly.
Exactly. Well, we'll get him in there because you'll be bowling on next week's show. So instead of asking you to do the color commentary while you're bowling, we'll have Paul fill in for you and get his insights for next week. That's 5 frames and 5 strikes for Chuck Jagodzinski.
Well, after watching these lanes, I can tell you ahead of time what's going to happen. I'll be playing very deep on the lane. I'll be between third and fourth arrow.
You've seen everybody figure out what works and what doesn't work, so.
And I'm going to have to get some Wheaties because I'm going to throw it as hard as I can.
All right, Billy is keeping pace with Chuck, except for the spare in the third frame. And that one was tracking perfectly. 30 career 300 games for Billy Owens, 15 career 800s, including an 858.
Wow.
When he was, he noted on his bio sheet Bradford City High. I don't know if that is when he was in high school there or it happened there, but that was 299, 300, 259 for an 858.
Oh, that's going to be, I think what that means is that is the high set for the city of Bradford.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Nice. Thought that might be going a little bit high,
Yep.
but
Billy is just back from his 23rd trip to the Nationals, which he's certainly very, very proud of. Here's Jagodzinski's 6th frame. And
wow.
We got pins flying everywhere here today.
Don't let those last 193s.
No, that's the outlier. That was the 41st Beat the Champ victory for Chuck Jagodzinski. As we mentioned, expanding his lead on Mike Zarcone, who's in second place with 36 victories here on our show.
Wow. What great
Perfect
shots.
through 7 for Chuck Jagodzinski.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
This is the second time he has taken a perfect game this deep so far. Did it a couple weeks ago on our show.
Oh, that was a great shot.
And there's that ring 10 that has plagued a number of bowlers here today. That's about as perfect of an example of what a ring 10 is.
Yep.
A perfect throw that just flew over the top, basically. Spare in the 7th for Billy Owens. So Billy is doing what he needs to do. He's just got to hope that there's a hiccup for Chuck Jagodzinski.
Yeah.
Of which we haven't had one yet. Final match of our this is our 3rd week here at Salamanca. We'll be here next week for a rather fun ladies showdown. But 3rd week of competition, final match. It will not fall. Boy, if there was ever a guy who wanted the Salamanca breeze to show up right at that moment, a little lake effect burst might have taken care of that one. Fair in the 8th for Billy Owens.
Well, all Chuck really needs to do is stay clean here. I mean, obviously he wants to finish this out and post up a second 300, but he's got this game well in hand.
That is 8th strike of the day through 8 frames.
Billy has a chance to shoot 246 and not even come
Wow,
close.
that's tough. 9th frame, Chuck Jagodzinski. 9th strike. So Billy Owens will finish things out here, and it's just a matter of trying to put as much heat, if there's a stumble by Chuck, to be in position. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And that one will officially clinch the victory in this match for Chuck Jagodzinski. But what a heck of a show by Billy Owens. And again, as we've talked about with Kemp and Piccoli and the rest of the guys, you can bowl well, but when you're bowling against Chuck, you better be better than well.
Yeah, well, the front 9, that'll put a hurt on you. Oh.
And that'll be an open in the 9th for Billy.
He just wants to get out of Chuck's way now.
Yep.
Give Chuck a chance to get up and bowl.
Yep.
And you know Chuck wants to get up and bowl.
Oh, yeah. So Billy will throw a couple of more here and make way for Chuck's attempt at a 300 game.
Told you he was funny.
Yes, he is. We heard the phone ring and he heard it too. When he noted who was here to see him, he said his dad is here, his uncle is here, and he goes, everybody in the town of Salamanca is here because they're all my friends. And I can totally see that, and I completely understand that. He is a popular guy down this neck of the woods, and that is understandable. And a great way to cap off a nice performance from Billy Owens. A 2-11 goes on the board for Billy, but now our attention on Chuck Jagodzinski in the 10th frame. 9 strikes to this point.
Good shot.
And that's how close.
And that's a very strange lead. That was a swisher strike that actually went behind the 4.
He was trying for his 70th career 300 game was Chuck Jagodzinski, and boy, did he come close with strikes through the first 9, and that bad break is what costs him that chance. But nonetheless, it's another win. Chuck Jagodzinski 5 in a row as he sweeps the week here, week number 3 in Salamanca, and continues to look like he is primed to continue this run, which will have to wait another week till we move on to Fredonia, because that's where Chuck is headed next after a 279 to 211 victory. We'll talk to both guys and wrap up week 3 here in Salamanca when Sue and I return on Beat the Champ. Well, what a way to wrap up week number 3 here in Salamanca with a great match, 279 to 211 for Chuck Jagodzinski. Billy, your first time on the show, but this is your place, and I think we all learned that after watching you bowl.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Chuck was a great competitor. I mean, no mistakes. 279, tough to beat.
Did you feel like you bowled pretty well? I mean, there's not much you can do about that, is there?
Nothing I can take back. No, nothing.
All right. Well, good.
I was happy with my performance.
Good. That was a heck of a debut on your part, and I don't know if you're sick of this guy already, because I get the sense you see a lot of him, but if you're giving him more money, that means he'll be back.
You're never sick of Billy O. Like you said, this is his house. So, and you know, just like any of the other matches, you know, a couple breaks or carry a 10 or whatever here changes the whole complexion. I mean, Billy was right. Chuck bowled great, but you know, if you put a little pressure, you never know what's going to happen. But the 10-pin stood, and that was about it.
Yeah, well, you aren't the only guy with trouble with the 10 pins.
Thank you. There you
go.
Paul. Thank you.
But a good show by Billy, but an even better show by Chuck. Sue?
Yes, Chuck, you put a clinic on for us today out there. What did you enjoy most about it?
When I had a strike, I struck. Like last match before, I didn't strike, and I see him striking, so start striking, and he was striking against me, so I knew I had to keep going, or he'll be on me. So I kept going.
All right, so it's actually more motivation that you were getting pushed.
Yep. If I get pushed, I'll push back.
All right. Well said. Well, you make it look easy, but I know you're working hard out there, and now you don't have to qualify next month at Fredonia, right?
Yeah, thank the Lord on that.
All right, well, we'll see you at Lucky Lanes.
Yes, we will. We will see Chuck in 2 weeks, and he'll try to keep that 5-match winning streak going. Sue and I will wrap up this week and talk a little bit about what's coming with Chuck down the road when we come back to Central Lanes in Salamanca. More Beat the Champ right after this. Well, I think we've learned on this show, Sue, when Chuck Jagodzinski is locked in, he is a pleasure to watch and he's tough to beat.
Yeah, and he didn't let anything distract him today. And he worked hard, and I really like the comment he made about being pushed and pushing back, because it does show what a true competitor he is. Because that 193 looked like he kind of lost it, and then he comes out with the front 8 or front 9. So kudos to him. He's got a tougher job at Fredonia because he doesn't love that house as much, but he did what he needed to do here.
Well, he'll take that 5-match winning streak into Fredonia to see a whole new set of competitors. That will be 2 weeks from today. Next week, are we ready for her to be one of our bowlers?
Now, I'm not allowed to be biased, but I'm going to be rooting for you a little bit
well,
over there.
all
But
right.
we love a lady show. We love a lady show.
Yeah, we've got a lady show next week, and while she'll do a little bit of her usual television commentary, she'll do a little bowling as well, too. That is something you're not going to want to miss. I'm excited for it. Janelle is. I know you are. That's next week. We'll see you then on Beat the Champ.